Alright, let's talk about South Korea. It's a country that's become a global sensation in so many ways, from its pop culture to its economic miracles. This is the place that gave us BTS, the Oscar-winning film Parasite, and the challenge of eating kimchi without staining your shirt. But there's more to South Korea than just catchy music and spicy food. Behind all that cultural coolness, there's a powerful economic engine driving the country forward. It's called the Chaebol. So, what exactly is a Chaebol? Imagine if a mega corporation, a royal family, and a government department all had a baby together. That baby would be a Chaebol. These are massive family-owned conglomerates with their fingers in every pie you can imagine. Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG, these are the giants, the household names, the Chaebols. They're not just big companies. They're empires that shape the skyline and the economy. One Chaebol might own a smartphone company, a shipyard, a life insurance firm, and even a professional baseball team. Their reach is almost limitless. The word Chaebol literally means wealthy clan. We're talking about immense fortunes, concentrated in just a handful of families. These conglomerates are the bedrock of South Korea's economy, and understanding them is key to understanding the country itself. In the US, Apple doesn't run hospitals or build nuclear plants, but in Korea, that's exactly the kind of thing a Chaebol does. Samsung is famous for its electronics, but the Samsung Group is involved in everything from heavy industry to medical services, insurance, and even theme parks. Their decisions can literally steer the national economy, a staggering and sometimes terrifying amount of power for unelected people to hold. Why should you care? Because the story of the Chaebol is a real-life drama about power, money, family, and national identity, all rolled into one. The Chaebol built modern South Korea, transforming it from a war-torn nation into an economic powerhouse. But they also broke parts of it along the way. And that tension, the push and pull between progress and problems, is something the country is still grappling with today, as new generations question the old ways and demand change. Let's turn back the clock and revisit a time when South Korea was almost unrecognizable from the powerhouse we know today. In the 1950s and early 60s, South Korea was devastated by war. One of the poorest, most war-torn countries on the planet, its cities reduced to rubble, and its people struggling to rebuild from scratch. The vast majority of people were farmers, working long hours in the fields just to get by. The economy was in tatters, and the country depended heavily on foreign aid simply to survive day to day. Infrastructure was almost non-existent, electricity was a rare luxury, and factories were few and far between. Most villages went dark at night, and modern conveniences were out of reach for most families. Political instability and military coups were the norm, with frequent protests and uncertainty clouding daily life. The idea that this struggling nation would one day produce world-leading brands and cutting-edge technology seemed almost laughable to outsiders. But then, in 1961, everything changed. General Park Chung-hee seized power in a dramatic military coup, promising a new direction for the country. Park was a dictator, but he was absolutely obsessed with economic development and transforming South Korea's future. His motto was clear: nation building first, democracy later, maybe. He believed that only rapid growth could save the country. Park's plan centered on a handful of ambitious entrepreneurs, the seeds of what would become the mighty Chaebol, or family-run conglomerates. The government didn't have the resources to build industries itself, so it picked winners, selecting business leaders it believed could deliver results. These promising businessmen received cheap loans, generous tax breaks, protection from foreign competition, and lucrative government contracts to jumpstart their ventures. The deal was simple: we'll make you rich, and in return, you'll build the industries that make our nation strong and self-reliant. It was a high-stakes gamble, a bold, state-sponsored plan to create industrial titans from almost nothing. Against all odds, it worked, setting South Korea on a path to become an economic miracle. The government under Park became the ultimate venture capitalist. Instead of funding apps, it funded the entire industrial base of a nation. This was a guided market, not a free one. The strategy, export-oriented industrialization, make things in Korea, sell them to the world. Park's regime handpicked companies and founders like Lee Byung-chul of Samsung and Chung Ju-young of Hyundai. The government gave them cheap loans, tax breaks, and protection from competition. They got access to foreign currency, help suppressing labor unions, and government contracts. Hyundai's founder, for example, went from rice delivery boy to building the country's first major highway, and the world's largest shipbuilder. This close government-business partnership became known as Korea Inc. The government set the targets. The Chaebols executed the plan. In return, the Chaebols grew into sprawling conglomerates, diversifying into dozens of industries. If one sector struggled, another could pick up the slack. This model was the rocket fuel for South Korea's economic transformation. For all its flaws, you have to admit, the system worked. Against all odds, South Korea transformed itself in just a few decades, becoming a symbol of rapid progress and resilience. South Korea went from aid recipient to donor country in a few generations, what's often called the miracle on the Han River. This transformation was nothing short of extraordinary, and it changed the lives of millions. The Chaebols, those massive family-run conglomerates, built factories, shipyards, and semiconductor plants, creating millions of jobs and opportunities for ordinary people. In the 70s and 80s, the focus was on heavy industry, steel, ships, and cars. By the 90s and 2000s, the country pivoted to high-tech, investing in electronics, IT, and innovation. Samsung bet big on memory chips, then flat-screen TVs, then smartphones, and won. Each gamble paid off, helping to cement Korea's place in the global tech race. Today, Samsung Electronics alone is a huge chunk of Korea's GDP and exports, driving the economy forward and shaping the nation's global image. Brands like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai became global household names, representing Korean innovation and quality in every corner of the world. This wasn't just economic victory, it was national pride. The world began to notice, and Koreans felt a new sense of confidence and identity. The Chaebols helped fund modern infrastructure, education, and even the cultural wave that brought us K-pop. Their influence reached into every part of daily life, from roads to pop culture. For decades, a job at a Chaebol was the ultimate prize: stability, status, and a ticket to the middle class. It was the dream for countless young Koreans. Families pushed their kids to study relentlessly for a shot at these companies, believing it was the surest path to success and security. The Chaebols lifted a nation out of poverty and created a new middle class, changing the social fabric and aspirations of an entire generation. On paper, it's one of the greatest economic success stories ever, a testament to what determination, vision, and hard work can achieve. But look closer, and you'll see deep cracks in the Chaebol system. Their close ties to government and immense size led to rampant corruption. Chaebol leaders are regularly caught in bribery scandals, so common it's almost expected. The pattern: a chairman is convicted, sentenced, then pardoned because the economy needs him. This creates a sense of injustice. Two sets of laws, one for Chaebol families, one for everyone else. Their dominance suffocates the rest of the economy. Competing with a Chaebol-owned bakery? Good luck. They use their power to bully smaller suppliers and squeeze profit margins. The economy becomes dangerously dependent on a few giants. If Samsung sneezes, the market catches a cold. The system built the nation but also trapped it, concentrating wealth at the very top. South Korea now has one of the highest rates of income inequality among developed nations. To understand Chaebols, look at their leaders. Samsung's late chairman, Lee Kun-hee, pushed the company to global dominance, but was twice convicted for tax evasion and embezzlement, and twice pardoned. His son, Lee Jae-yong, was imprisoned for bribery in a scandal that toppled a president. Hyundai's founder, Chung Ju-young, built an empire from nothing, but after his death, his sons fought a bitter war for control, splitting the group. Sometimes the drama gets bizarre, like the nut rage incident when the Korean air chairman's daughter forced a plane back to the gate over how her nuts were served. These stories are more than tabloid fodder. They're symbols of Chaebol arrogance and public frustration. The unchecked power of these dynasties is a growing problem. Scandal and family feuds are almost as much a part of the Chaebol story as their business success. The public is increasingly fed up with the sense of entitlement at the top. The Chaebol world is a mix of brilliance, dysfunction, and sometimes pure absurdity. Is the Chaebol model unique to South Korea? Yes and no. Other countries have big family businesses, Germany's Mittelstand, Japan's Keiretsu, but none are quite like the Chaebol. The Chaebol's mix of family dynasty, government partnership, and sprawling reach is distinctly Korean. The closest comparison: America's 19th century robber barons, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt. The US broke up monopolies with antitrust laws. South Korea has been more reluctant. The state nurtured the Chaebols as partners in a national project, making them hard to untangle. For decades, "What's good for Samsung is good for Korea" was the mantra. This has protected them from backlash and reform. The result, a lopsided economy where startups and small businesses struggle to break through. The very engine that built Korea now limits its future potential. The Chaebol model is both a source of pride and a growing concern. For small business owners, the Chaebol system feels rigged. Chaebols have unbeatable advantages: cheaper materials, vast networks, and huge marketing budgets. Many small companies exist only as suppliers, vulnerable to price cuts and tech theft. Innovate, and a Chaebol might just take your idea. This stifles grassroots innovation and makes building the next Samsung nearly impossible. The result? A few giant trees, little undergrowth. Economic pressure and social stress are immense. South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates in the developed world. The Chaebols built a wealthy nation, but many feel left behind and trapped. So where does South Korea go from here? The Chaebol model built a powerhouse, but its side effects, corruption, inequality, stifled competition, are impossible to ignore. Public anger is rising, and recent governments have promised reform: stronger antitrust laws, more accountability, fewer pardons. Some progress has been made, but real change is hard. The Chaebols are deeply intertwined with the economy. The challenge: build a more diverse, dynamic business ecosystem where innovation is rewarded regardless of family name, strengthen the rule of law, curb political influence, and keep economic power in check. Can South Korea do it? It's a monumental task. But this is a country that's overcome impossible odds before. The future may depend on taming the very titans it created, and building an economy that's not just rich, but fair. That would be a miracle worth celebrating even more than the first one.